So one team I've noticed within the last week that's playing very good basketball is the Toronto Raptors, and after last night's win for the Raptors, I decided to take a deep dive into their stats as of late. This team really is clamping down as well as starting to come together offensively overall, and I think that this is a team we got to break down here today. What's up guys, SCJ here, and if you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot, and if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. So last night, the Raptors got a very impressive win over one of the league's top MVP candidates, Joel Embiid, and his team, the Eastern Conference's first-seeded Philadelphia 76ers. What's even more impressive about their win is they did so without veteran leader Kyle Lowry, as he's missed their last 3 games with a sprained left thumb. During these last 3 games without Lowry, the team has still played very good basketball as they beat another one of the East's top teams without Lowry, the Milwaukee Bucks. The Raptors now hold the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference after last night's win as well. This Raptors team has had a strange season as they had a terrible start to their season, only winning 2 of their first 10 games. Ever since then, though, they started playing a bit better for a couple games, but then they suffered 3 straight losses. However, ever since then, the team has looked extremely locked in, and they're playing very well as they've won 9 of their last 12 games since then. The Raptors have had a number of guys miss a few games, most notably OG Anunoby and now Kyle Lowry, but those few missed games by the players on their roster haven't been the reason for their struggles, as the only players out for a decent period of time have been Anunoby and Lowry, like I mentioned, and their absences have happened at some point during this 12-game stretch where this Raptors team has played exceptional basketball. So really, what is it then? Well, the first reason has been the fact that they're getting slight improvements from a good number of their other players in terms of scoring and field goal percentage. Then, as a team, over the past 12 games, the Raptors have averaged the 9th most points per game, and that's even despite the fact that over these past 12 games, they have the 17th ranked field goal percentage. So they're in the bottom half of the league, yet still putting up the 9th most points over this stretch. It seems the reason for that is they're one of the top teams in the league in the other 2 shooting categories. The first of those 2 categories we'll look at is 3-point shooting. Over their last 12 games, the Raptors have made the 8th most 3-pointers over that stretch and have attempted the 9th most threes over that stretch. This means that they are a top 10 team in 3-point percentage over that 12-game stretch as well. With how important 3-point shooting is in today's game, being top 10 in all 3 of those categories from beyond the arc is of course very good. The only other shooting category left is free throw shooting, where you can argue they're the best team in the league in. The reason is, while they haven't made the most free throws or attempted the most free throws over these past 12 games, as they ranked 5th in free throws made and 7th in free throws attempted, when they get to the line, they make sure to hurt their opponents for putting them on the line, as they have shot the best percentage from the free throw line out of any other team in the league over their past 12 games. They're also drawing the 7th most fouls from their opponent during this 12-game stretch. So even though they could potentially get over 23 points from the line, as that's how many free throws they're attempting, I'm sure they're fine with the near 20 points that they're getting from the line in their games since January 31st. While the Raptors aren't even top 15 in either rebounds or assists over their past 12 games, they're doing very good defensively, as they're causing the 4th most turnovers from their opponents and grabbing the 4th most steals of any team during this stretch. Also, if you care about the advanced statistics, the Raptors have the 5th highest plus-minus in the league during this 12-game stretch. They're also top 5 in causing their opponents to have the 5th worst plus-minus since January 31st of this year as well. If you look at what else defensively they're doing to their opponents, during these 12 games, they've caused their opponents to make the 2nd lowest number of field goals in the league. What's even more impressive is they're doing that while their opponents are tied for attempting the most field goals per game, meaning the Raptors are causing their opponents to shoot the 5th worst field goal percentage over this stretch. That's even despite the fact that their opponents are actually shooting decent or okay from 3-point range as well. And even though it doesn't factor into field goal percentage, their opponents aren't doing bad from the free throw line either. But overall, they're showing they're very good defensively, even with some struggles guarding the wing. Now let's take a look back at the turnover categories like we mentioned earlier. Just now we'll be looking at it from the standpoint of their opponents over these past 12 games. Over this stretch, the Raptors have caused their opponents to turn the ball over the 2nd most times out of any team in the league, and they're doing a very good job protecting the ball themselves when they're on offense, as they're allowing their opponents to get the 6th lowest steals of any team in the league over their past 12 games. When on offense, the Raptors aren't causing their opponents to foul them, as they're ranked 24th out of 30th in that category, but once again, to show how well their defense has been, their opponents are drawing the third lowest amount of fouls drawn on them per game. Not only that, but the Raptors are allowing the 6th lowest points per game over this stretch also. We'll finish up talking on their defensive stats by looking at 2 more important categories in which they have been very good at over these past 12 games. Over this 12-game stretch, this Raptors team's transition defense is looking very, very good, as they're allowing the 5th lowest points scored off of turnovers during this stretch. Then, fittingly so, as before I mentioned how their defense was top in field goal percentage despite their opponents shooting solid from beyond the arc, the Raptors are allowing their opponents to score the 3rd lowest amount of points per game over this 12-game stretch in the paint, with 41.5 per game. Their defensive numbers really have been very good lately, and it's easy to see why they've won 9 of their past 12 games over this stretch. It's not as if they've played bad offensive teams either during this stretch, as 5 of those 12 games were against top 11 teams in terms of points per game overall on the season, and not just over this stretch. It's tough to look at some of the Raptors' stats overall on the season and use them to judge this team because of that rough start that they had to begin the season. For example, if you look at relative percent index, which is calculated by averaging together 25% of a team's winning percentage, 50% of opponents' average winning percentage, and 25% of opponents' average winning percentage, the Raptors sit exactly middle of the pack in the league for the entire season at 15. Of course, though, a big reason for that is that terrible stretch they had to begin the season. In terms of the strength of schedule, though, they have had the 26th ranked strength of schedule in the league this season, so really the 5th easiest schedule thus far this season. So that shows why their RPI is so low overall on the year, as when the team lost those games early on, they were against teams they should have beaten, and the games they won weren't against teams that were a top team in the league either. Speaking of top teams, though, it's important to remember before this 12-game stretch that the Raptors are currently riding, they did lose to some good teams like the Suns, Trailblazers, and Spurs, and even some of the teams that they beat during this stretch, such as the Sixers and Bucks. So this has really been a strange season for the Raptors, and kind of a tough one overall to really assess and judge how they've looked or how they've been, or maybe how they will look as they enter the second half of the season and the playoffs later down the line. The one thing I will say, though, is this Raptors team has played very well lately, and you guys were able to see that from some of the wins that I've showed, as well as some of the stats that I showed off in this video. The fact they've played well over a more than 10-game stretch and have beaten some very good teams is impressive, and I think it shows there's a chance this can or maybe will carry over into the second half of the season, beginning in March, and then eventually the playoffs. I do have some concerns, as this Raptors team disappointed me and seemed to fall apart during the 2020 playoffs, as even though I'm not a Toronto Raptors fan, I looked at this team kinda highly. However, this is a new season, and this Raptors team has played fundamentally sound and tough defensive basketball, which is something that's typically rare for a team to not carry over into the playoffs. They were like that last year, so who really knows, but I hope we can see them succeed when it comes down to playoff time. One other interesting thing I didn't mention is the Raptors are apparently looking to make trades, including even trading away their veteran leader, Kyle Lowry. However, allowing this young Raptors team to finally handle business themselves and without Lowry might be what's best for the team, as they've won every single game this season that Lowry has missed, and all of those games but one were against playoff teams. The Raptors team is also 16-0 in their last 16 games without Lowry. I'm not going to necessarily say this team is better or will be better without Lowry, but that's an interesting stat and thing to look at for sure, and I just wanted to leave you guys with that stat. I want to know, though, what you guys think about this Raptors team, this 12-game stretch for them, or anything having to do with the team or the franchise down below in the comment section. Like mentioned before, though, if you liked the video, then make sure to give it a like, as it helps out a lot. And if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. That way you stay up to date with my newest content. Anyway, though, guys, I'm SCJ, and I am out. Peace.